Ahoy mateys, and thanks for tuning in to Pirates and Teepees. Joshua Besnay here in the lab. Snowy day outside today, so I figured I'd play with my robots. I don't think I've done a video on this R1 open source rover that I'm building. It kind of started out when I got my first 3D printer and I started printing up the Ed rover. You can find this on Thingiverse, and that's where I got the tracks and stuff from, and the Raspberry Pi fits in there. See how, oh, there we go. You can kind of see that there. And then it started adding to it, so I built a circuit board for it. You know, this is like the beginning of the breakout board for the Raspberry Pi, which fits on here more or less. Boom, boom, boom. Then I wanted to put a head on it, and so I made this out of an old robot head that I built a long time ago. Now I've like actuated it with a bunch of servos and some stuff I printed off Thingiverse, and then also this base that I made in CAD and printed up, and then it all kind of went together like this. But I mean, that's pretty cool looking, right? But it quickly became apparent, and once the battery's on there, and I still got more stuff to add, that it was just getting too heavy for this base that was already, you know, not meant, it's really not that strong, and I'm just kind of getting a little big for my britches. So I've decided, but I'm going to move the components over to this right here, which is, Gage got this for Christmas. It was like an excavator. You control it with the remote. I think there might be enough battery. Oh, yeah, you can kind of see that move. And batteries are in the controller. So there's plenty of room in here. I removed the excavator part. Now I just have the tracks. So I'm going to do some upgrades to the tracks, and potentially on the 3D printer maybe adding a mount spot right here. And then also I want to put bearing wheels in the front. So I got to remake these wheels. And then that way I can maybe mount everything into one right there. Also this top has some mounty things on it that turns. But it's not really, none of this really squares up. It mounts to the excavator, I think, in such a way to displace the weight, which isn't balanced. So I'm going to do something else with this, and we'll kind of go from there. And then when it's done, the eventual goal is this will have a Raspberry Pi 3 in it, camera, a whole bunch of sensors, which will then be feeding back over the network to a mainframe that will have, I think, TensorFlow is, you know, I want to hear in the comments any suggestions. Basically, I want to get all the hardware done, be able to control it via the computer, and then get it to learn how to do stuff using TensorFlow and do object recognition. It seems like all these things are available open source, and it should all be possible. Anyway, let's get started and take this thing apart, move some components over there. We'll get to the programming way later, but let's have some fun building stuff. Alrighty, well, we have everything down to the base components here. So this is the bottom with the motor unit from the from the tractor bit. We got the top here. What's cool is this fit through here quite nicely. I'm going to be able to carve this out a little bit so that this can go through here, and then the Raspberry Pi will then fit nicely inside of this unit here. There's plenty of room for that. You can see this fits in here. Boom! Just got to cut the back out here and then come up with some mounting spots. It's kind of interesting. This little post in the back is just enough in the way of the SD card. Obviously that can't be removed because that holds the motor in place. But if you look if we cut this out so that the Raspberry Pi fits and leaves all this part open here, then I'll be able to bring it out the back there. Ooh, maybe I only have to cut on one side as well. Alright, let's see. So what we'll do, I'm going to mark this so we can go Dremel it. And then we'll cut that little bit out there. And then I need to replace the motor wires with some heavier gauge wire. So we can bring them out through the top of this. We'll put some holes here and here. And then we can mount the... boom. We'll be able to mount our motor power source up here. And then from here, I'm thinking this will probably be a fan. We'll cut this out, put a fan there, and then bring something up here so this can get mounted on that. Bring that up a little bit and go from there. I've soldered some new wires here onto the motors, a little more robustified that way. I did not film that because there's plenty of other YouTube videos, more of my videos showing me soldering. You can go watch those. So what we need to do now, got this marked off. What I did is I got this on here all straight, nice and kind of eyeballed at center. And then it clicks in there, it's all perfect size. And then I just use this razor blade up against the edge. Mark my spot. Now we're gonna Dremel this sucker out. it's been a long day of 3D printing here in the laboratory, but let's see what we have. So I've got the 2 front wheels done. I'm getting a little better at CAD. I've learned so much already. I'm still learning to use FreeCAD, and this has been an absolutely valuable tool, and learning to translate my ideas into 3D drawings and then sizing them correctly so that they work in the real world and parts fit together. You know, if you just do everything exact, once it's printed up, things don't quite fit properly. They're always a little too small, so there's a lot of trial and error, as you saw with these axles. However, the front axle's done. I've got one of the 2 kind of assembled here. Nice bearing on there, and these wheels, other than needing to be trimmed, are pretty much ready to go. So I'll slide this on here, and bam! Awesome sauce. Look at that front wheel compared to the other ones before. So the original front wheel was just this little plastic yellow wheel that screwed into the side, and it was just kind of a plastic against plastic as far as any kind of bearing went, and so it was just absolute friction all the way around. And I'm figuring that once I have the weight of the full robot on here, obviously that wasn't going to cut the mustard. So this turned out really well. Front wheel on a bearing, fits in here super nice and perfect. Let's see if both ends fit on. All happy. Oops, I just dropped a bunch of crap on the ground. Look at that. Seems like it's not perfectly centered. Maybe that bearing didn't go in all the way. Either way, it's good, and I'm going to call it good. So let's put this thing together and move on to the next part. I think we might be done until I order the next things. I don't know. Let's get some things put together, and we'll talk about it and see. about enough for part 1, but I can guarantee that if you subscribe and watch for upcoming videos, you will see it eventually become this thing of joy and beauty. Oh yes, indeed. Now there is a robot. Yes, meet. Say hello to your future overlord. Anyway, all subscribers will be spared in the robot apocalypse, so be sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and definitely share this video. Tell your friends. Help save them from your future overlords.